or sorry, 3 people saying Locksley choked Gerald. You have one coach saying that Locksley was swinging towards him, and from that conclusion you come up with a written and verbal reprimand.
Well, Jessica, the swinging has been portrayed to me as flailing of arms and not punches, but more importantly, and I understand there's conflicting information there. More importantly, I focused on what was in the police report and my one-on-one conversation with Coach Gerald, where his focus of discussion with me was on a punch, on grabbing around the collar. So that was the focus of, I took all that information into account. The reprimand was hardly a letter or a slap on the wrist. It was, there was discipline, there was accountability, there was behavioral issues. It was stern and severe, and that was the intention. We never got to that point. When we found out we were not in compliance with HR policies, we then deferred over to HR.
And when you give September 29th, when you come out and give the first punishment,
correct.
You say that it's unacceptable, very unacceptable for another coach to put his hands on another coach, and you still think that it was okay with the written reprimand and the verbal reprimand?
As I said, the reprimand and the written reprimand had some real teeth to it. That never was implemented. When we found out we were not in compliance with HR, we turned the process over to HR.
Okay. How can you say on October 13th, again, when this is the second time he gets in trouble, that there was absolutely no witnesses? You wanted to make it clear that Locksley was throwing punches. Did he throw a punch? You have a coach that says that he saw swinging. Did Locksley ever throw a punch?
The swinging that is in those minutes has been, or in those notes, has been portrayed to me as flailing, not as a punch. There were no witness that showed Coach Locksley punching Coach Gerald, and my comment was specific to the allegation of Coach Locksley punching Coach Gerald.
Did he, regardless if it landed on Gerald, did he throw a punch at Gerald?
In the end, the only people that know exactly what happened were the 6 folks in that room, and there's conflicting evidence. I have seen nothing that, I have seen no information that would lead me to believe that Coach Locksley threw a punch at Coach Gerald. And our effort in all of this has been to get at the truth. Does
guys fight like that? I mean, we're saying arms are wailing. If someone's going to attack somebody, they don't go with their arms flailing. Does that make sense to you?
As I said, I don't really know exactly what happened. I wasn't in the room. All I know is based upon my personal conversations with Coach Gerald, with Coach Locksley, and certainly on the information provided by HR in terms of their investigation of the report.
Did you act too hastily coming to the first conclusion and only giving them a verbal and written reprimand?
If I had to do it all over again, and there are no do-overs in life, you have to be held accountable for your decision, we would have turned it over to HR immediately.
How was that mistake made? How did you not know? Were you not trained in not knowing to go to HR? Why didn't you not go to HR in the beginning?
Well, I'm a vice president of athletics, and ultimately I have to be held accountable for not knowing the university policy. The policy is very thick. There's a lot of detail, and probably most importantly, I've never had to deal with an issue of workplace violence before. What I thought initially was that we were following the policy. When it became clear to me that we weren't, and that we were not able to investigate ourselves, then we turned it over to HR.
Why rush, and you said you would do it over again, but why then? Why did you rush so quickly to go ahead and reprimand him?
Well, I wouldn't say I was rushing so quickly, but certainly I was trying to be, in part, to be responsive to the media, and we called a press conference trying to be responsive to the requests from the media.
What do you say to Gerald's claims that you tried to cover this up and downplay what had happened?
I had 2 rather lengthy meetings with Coach Gerald. From the beginning, I was trying to ascertain what it was that he wanted, what his outcome he was hoping. Talked a lot about what might be in his best interest, what was in our best interest. We covered a lot of options. I gave him the professional advice of somebody who's been in athletics for 30 years and tried to walk him through a number of scenarios. I don't recall specific words that may have been said that day. What I do know is that we walked through a number of options, and my recommendation to Coach Gerald was that we certainly wanted him back as a part of our coaching staff, and I hoped he would come back as a part of our coaching staff. And all along, I believe there was a real possibility he might come back to our staff.
That's obviously not going to happen. Is
No.
he still on
He's on paid administrative leave, yes.
until his contract expires? Is that?
I think that now, because of the threat of litigation, I think that issue now is probably more in the hands of the attorneys.
Okay. During this entire situation, you have one reprimand, then you have another, then you have, so there's 2 press conferences. It's out, national news and local news as well. Then you have to come back because then there's new allegation, there's new, witnesses saying that he was choked, witnesses saying that hands were swinging. Just kept going on and on and on. Can you see why the public would think this is a cover-up?
I certainly understand why people assume that we have not been totally forthcoming, and I get that. This has not been handled as well as it should have, and I take responsibility for that. Had we turned it over to HR initially, certainly it could have been perceived and would have been perceived differently.
Why not come out in the very beginning and say, here, this is what some of the coaches are saying. Did he choke? Why not come in the beginning and say what you knew? Because you knew about all that stuff. You knew that coaches had witnessed choking and coaches had witnessed swinging.
I was particularly responding to the the police report and the allegation that Coach Locksley had punched him. We didn't go into all the details, and we don't get an opportunity to relive what we should have done in a situation like that. I have to accept what I've done, and we move forward.
Did you not go into the details to downplay it a little bit so that it didn't look as severe as it was?
It was a severe, it was a significant issue. Any kind of scenario where one individual in the workplace is putting their hands on another is very significant, and we were not downplaying that. I understood the gravity and do understand the gravity of that situation.
Obviously, if this were to ever happen again, this is not how it would be dealt with. If anything like this magnitude, or if there was any other sort of incident, this is not the way you would have handled it.
Are you referring to Coach Locksley or me,
with
my
Coach,
handling?
Your handling.
Well, if anything happens, we certainly learned and I have a full understanding of engaging HR from the beginning, but more importantly, I think you heard the President say that the ties with athletics and HR have just gotten a lot more direct, and no, that would not happen again.
How do you repair the bad reputation that UNM has gotten locally and nationally?
Well, we've suffered. There's no question we've suffered because of what's happened here. We've got to rebuild our fan base, the trust from our fan base. We have great fans who are supportive of Lobo athletics. Coach Locksley has repair and damage to do and begin to improve our image. Certainly, my credibility has been questioned, so there's a lot of hard work. We lay out a plan. In the end, I think our fans, and we have incredible fans, and I believe they support our student athletes and the young men and young women who wear our uniforms.
Do you still have complete faith in Coach Locksley?
Mike Locksley's our football coach. There's damage has been done. Now we have to go about the process of repairing that damage.
Did you know when you were looking to hire Locksley, did you know about his past in these 2 previous fights?
We hired a search firm who did a background check. There were no red flags in that background check. I did some background checking. There were no red flags. And my understanding is that at least in one of those instances, the coach allegedly involved in the altercation has either denied or downplayed that incident entirely. So there were no red flags in his background.
Did you know about the 2 prior fights before you hired him?
No, I did not.
If you would have known, would that have changed your mind?
Well, the one instance happened when Mike was in our employ at the coaches' convention, and knowing now what I know about those issues, at least what people are telling me about those issues, I don't believe that they're of major concern. There has not been a pattern of behavior in his past that caused us concern when we made the hire.
Anything else you'd like to mention?